The inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
For months, the world's attention was drawn to the central square in Kiev, Ukraine. Protesters discussed it with the corruption of the regime and the decision to bow to the Kremlin rather than embrace economic ties to the European Union forced the expulsion of President Yanukovych. Now the struggle has shifted to Crimea. The immediate issue is whether that critical province will be forcibly reintegrated into Russia or remain part of Ukraine. The deeper issue is the cultural identity of Ukraine and its political relationship with Russia. Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. I'm Dan Hurley. The events in Ukraine may seem very distant, but Cincinnati has an official relationship with Ukraine's second largest city, Kharkiv, and our sister city, and hundreds of Cincinnatians have visited Kharkiv, and hundreds of Kharkivites have visited Cincinnati over the last 25 years, forming significant personal relationships. In May of 1991, I spent 2 weeks in Kharkiv and Kiev as a reporter for Local 12 as part of a larger cultural delegation. That was a critical moment, just months before the collapse of the Soviet Union, something no one foresaw at that time. Let me share 1 minute of one of the news stories that we produced after returning. 2 notes. Pay attention to the calculator used in the store. I used the Russian name for the city, Kharkov, at the time, and referred to people as Soviet citizens.
No matter what store you visit in Kharkov these days, the refrain is the same. We are so ashamed of our empty shelves. But by repeating the phrase empty shelves over and over, Soviets are reinforcing an oversimplified and negative picture of reality. Bread shops like this one on Lennon Street are overflowing with wonderful smelling loaves in a wide variety of shapes and sizes. And although prices went up about 6 weeks ago, a large loaf still only cost about 62 kopecks. And even on a Soviet's income, that's less than what an American is used to paying for a loaf of bread. At a nearby grocery store, which employs 14 people, customers dart in and out during their lunch hour to buy beets, tomatoes, cucumbers, dried apples, and greens.
The food available in this store and the way it's displayed will be unfamiliar to Americans in 1991. But one thing's for sure, my grandmother would be a lot more comfortable in this shop than she would in a Kroger superstore.
The store director is worried things will get worse before they get better.
I am joined this morning by Jan Sherbin. Let's come back to, there we are, by Jan Sherbin, who's been involved in many ways with the Sister City movement over the years. She and her husband run Glasnost Communications, which provides language and cultural assistance to companies, government agencies, and community organizations. And Guennadi Maslov, a photographer, artist, and photo educator who grew up in Kharkiv, now lives in Cincinnati for 22 years, but returns regularly. Jan, Guennadi, welcome to Newsmakers.
Thank you.
Guennadi, how well have you been able to stay in touch with relatives and friends in Ukraine over the past several months, but especially over the last, say, 2 or 3 weeks?
Talking on the phone, exchanging emails is pretty regular. Last time I was in Ukraine in August, just a couple of months before the event started. And nothing was in the air, I'm afraid to say. I felt nothing, nobody was talking about the events to come. After that and right now, it's a constant contact.
Okay, so contact has not been disrupted?
Not at all.
How about you, Jan? Are you able to stay in touch with people that you know, and you know a lot of people?
Absolutely. Over the years, I have met and worked with so many people, and they feel so connected to us. It's really hard to describe, but they can feel that we are thinking of them. The big reason that they feel that with email now, it's so easy just to email them and say.
And you've been getting emails.
We're thinking of you, and we've been getting emails back, and there's a lot on these people's minds, and it's not unilateral. It's not all the same thought that they have.
Yeah. There's one email that you shared with me I'm not sure who it came from, but these events have been the most frightening and tragic in Ukraine's recent history. At the same time, they provided a powerful impetus to our civic society development, self-organization, and civic awareness nationwide. So the struggle and the hope.
I think, you know, that acknowledges that although they are looking to the outside for help, there are people outside their country fighting over them. They're fighting inside the country. But they understand that in the long run, as this plays out, they will be counted on to do the heavy lifting. They need to understand where they want to go and figure out how to get there. We can help, we can advise, we can show them how we do things here, but they need to do it.
Well, it's interesting, in another report that I did coming back, I dealt exactly with this question of grassroots organization, civil society, civic development. It's very interesting to see what's happening now, to see a quote like that, because that was also what was on their minds at that time. Guennadi, there's a lot of discussion in the American press about sort of the Ukrainian versus the Russian, and that the eastern Ukraine, where Kharkiv is more Russified. It's more Russia-leaning, culturally more Russian than the Kiev area. What would you say to that? How would you help Americans understand what that really means?
Very few people in this country, and actually in Ukraine to some extent as well, realize that there is not one, but at least two Ukraines. One traditional heartland Ukraine around Kiev and more to the west, and a new entity that has been formed probably within the last 200 to 300 years on the basis of intermixing Russian and Ukrainian ethnicity, and it's Eastern Ukraine, Eastern and Southern. These two parts are roughly equal in size, but differ in so many respects that we can talk about a nation somewhat divided. In Ukraine, everybody realizes this distinction, and in one way or the other counts himself or herself as part of left or right, west or east. But there is no name for each part of the country individually, and it may be a little misleading for people's psychology, for understanding of Ukraine in the West. There are at least two Ukraines.
Yeah. You know, back in '91 when I was preparing for my visit there, I mean, as soon as you started reading, that was something that got talked about. And if you look at a map, and I would encourage everyone to find a good map, and on TV, maps are so small you can't really see anything, but find a good map of Ukraine, and what you will see is how Kiev and to the west, you know, is bumping up against Belarus, against Poland, you know, and then to the west, it's Russia all the way down the other side. So it makes it easier, including what we're talking about in Crimea on a political level, to see how geographically the country is lined up, not to mention culturally, linguistically.
Exactly.
What about linguistically? And when you go home, you probably grew up speaking Russian, right?
Yes. Being both Russian and Ukrainian ethnically, so to say, I grew up in the city that was completely Russified, or maybe Russified is not the correct word. Russian was kind of lingua franca for that part of the country, which at the end of the Soviet Union was arguably probably the melting pot of the Soviet Union.
Yeah.
And to have so many languages spoken at the same time would probably just be inconvenient. Everybody spoke Russian.
Yeah.
Even now they do, while the Ukrainian language gains popularity and gains support in on all levels of society. everybody speaks Russian. Speaking about Russian in Kiev is common, but when people switch to official, educational, academic issues, they normally would switch to Ukrainian.
And for the Sister City movement, Jan, the goal is people-to-people relationships. I mean, that is the whole point. It's not about the political stuff exactly. I mean, politics can be talked about, government structures, how to help people move forward, blah, blah, blah. But it's really about people-to-people. Tell me a few examples of what this Sister City relationship has accomplished over the years.
Well, you know, you can see in your video, life is about going to the grocery store, getting your groceries, going to work, whatever. That's the level that we can share with people on. We're not on the political level. We're not on the geopolitical level. We're on the level of, you know, let's talk about things. Let's see how our lives are the same. Let's see how our lives are different. At this point, you know, I can say that people's lives, for the most part, are going on as they have been. People have to walk into the protest areas deliberately to be in danger. I have not heard that anyone that we know is in any kind of danger over there at this point. They're worried about things. They're worried about what the outside forces are doing to them. But they like to hear from us. Just knowing that we're thinking of them, that they can express their thoughts to us is important to them, and that shows how long-standing this relationship has been.
And do delegations still go back and forth?
Oh, absolutely, you know, and they learn so much here. They learn not only about their field of expertise, but they learn how we treat each other, what our attitudes are, what our ethics are, and they're bringing this back. Now, I wish we could do more of these programs, because this is what's creating the critical mass that can build Ukraine. They're really in a nation-building mode. In many senses, they're still where they were in 1991 when they declared independence. They need to do some real nation-building.
I want to be clear, though. I know for me, for my 2 weeks there, I really felt I learned. You know, my background is as an American revolutionary historian, and although nobody knew the Soviet Union was going to fall apart in 3.5 months, and you were there when that happened.
Oh, yeah.
You were in Kharkiv when that happened. I just knew we were visiting a society in revolution, and it was so fascinating to me what was going on. So I've learned so much, and then people who have come back here have visited over here. I just find it wonderful. It's not a one-way street at all.
Oh, and it's so interesting to know these people who are living right in the middle of what's happening in our lead story in the news.
Well, I want to, you're a photographer.
Yes.
You tell stories through photography. I wanted to bring up a couple of the photographs that you shared with me. One is these young boys all holding guns. What is this, and why did you take this image?
This image was actually taken 25 years ago, 24 years ago. During summer, the Soviet kids used to go to camps where a part of their pastime was playing with guns, and they were military games. That picture was taken at one of them. The guns, by the way, are not real. They are made for the purpose. So,
was this part of your experience, your personal experience, going to these sorts of camps, having that kind of experience?
Definitely. I learned to assemble and disassemble Kalashnikov when I was 12.
There's also a photo of a family that it's black and white again, which is kind of, I've always loved black and white photography. It's the historian in me. But why this image? Why did you take it? Why did you share it with me?
It's a part of my book, Ukrainian Time, and it was photographed in Poltava in central Ukraine about 4 years ago. It's a family of a friend of mine, just posing during a countryside picnic. People do more of these things there, and it's just a very open and a picture that tells a lot to me about that part of the world.
Besides the photographs, your book, you write, and there is a sentence, you shared some of this, there's a sentence that really popped out, and I want to read this. History and circumstance has made Eastern Europe a colossal testing ground for human endurance and endeavor. It just jumped off the page at me. I mean, both the endurance and the endeavor to create something. It's really fascinating. What is it that Americans have to learn from people in Ukraine?
For a culturally and cultural old country like America, many things still to be learned, but probably in a non-traditional way. Ukraine has been in wars to some level for dozens of years. Somebody calculated that in the last 200 years, Eastern Europe was at peace only for 70 years. So in one way or the other, the war was around. People learned to maintain their lives and their psychological connections under all kinds of circumstances. It can be one of the lessons.
Yeah, yeah. Jan, what's your hope as we move forward here?
I hope that the people who have been to Cincinnati, the people who have come to the United States and seen how we do things here, not that they have to copy us or that we're always right, but we hope that they understand that they can have a better life and it's up to them to find it. Where they are now, I have somebody who wrote to me, you know, I am not sure that educated choices will be made with all the high stress and anxiety. This is not a good time to be redesigning your country. Somebody says, I hope that common sense will prevail. That's what they need to calm down and really look at, take all their ideas from all over the world, decide what they want to do, and really organize themselves to do it. And I hope that's what happens.
Guennadi, what do you hope for, given where we are right now?
At this point, people need to stop and to think about it. Honestly, I think the Crimea is going away from Ukraine, and the future referendum will probably just prove it. But on the other hand, does it mean anything globally different in that part of the world? I don't think so. I hope Ukraine will overcome her current problems and will become what it's destined to become, a prosperous European country.
Okay. Thank you very much. I hope what we've accomplished here is to remind people that we do have this connection to Ukraine and to the people of Kharkiv, and that in the midst of all this news reporting, we get the personal view. So thank you very much for being here. Stay in touch. Depending on how things develop, may invite you back. Stay tuned. After the break, a civil rights legend is going to visit Cincinnati. Welcome back. Regular viewers know that as an historian, I'm a sucker for anniversaries. Any institution that has survived 50 or 100 years, they frequently end up on Newsmakers. This morning, however, we are noting the 1-year anniversary of the New Life Covenant Cincinnati Church. So why mark a first anniversary of a small church? The honest answer is because I am a fan of its founder, Sherman Bradley, who is one of those people who I reference at the end of every Newsmakers as working to make our community better for the future. I'm joined again this morning by Sherman Bradley, who almost has an endowed seat on this show, who is the co-pastor of New Life Covenant Cincinnati Church. He is the president of Consider the Poor and does training all over the United States. Amazing trainer. He is a founder and force behind the annual Hope Fest Elementary and Health Fair, and he is the founder and president of Green Recycling Works, and who knows what else. Sherman, welcome back.
Thank you, Dan.
I know that the church is your real center and passion. I mean, you do all of this stuff. Yes. What is distinctive about the church? What do you want to be distinctive about the church as it moves forward and it grows?
Well, we have been very intentional about being multi-ethnic, intergenerational, and multi-class. And since we're in the heart of the city and we know our metropolitan communities know.
And where are you?
Taft High School
Okay.
Yes, which is a story in and of itself. My father graduated from Taft High School and some of his siblings, which was not my original intention, but that's where we have found ourselves, and in a wonderful place, wonderful facility. But a multi-ethnic, intergenerational, and multi-class community thriving in the heart of the city. Unfortunately, in America, 86.3% of all churches are homogeneous, or one dominant ethnic class and ethnic group. And unfortunately, that's not what heaven looks like. And in our metropolitan communities, they no longer...
that's not what heaven looks like.
I would suspect not, based upon what the good book says. But here it is, we have our metropolitan communities now that are extremely diverse, but yet they're not necessarily inclusive. And we're working to provide opportunities to build bridges where there's still divides. And that's extremely important to us. And beyond that, we're a church for the hurting. Because unfortunately, one of the greatest divides is folk who are external of church life and Christian life or religious life because of bad experiences with hurting people. And so we're a place for hurting people, especially if you've been hurt by a church or religious institution before.
So you're almost a year old.
Almost.
How many people?
Oh, well, we average from anywhere from 30 to 50. It depends upon the weather, as we've had some challenges this winter in our city. And it's been challenging being in a school, especially for the inner city community. It's kind of foreign to see an actual church in a school and to get them to actually come in. And then crossing that divide. Unfortunately, there's an imaginary line down Central Parkway, and it's been challenging to get the new residents to understand where we are and even where Taft High School is, which is kind of odd.
That surprises me.
Yes.
The fact that you're inside. That's one thing, but I would think they know where Taft is. But anyway, be that as it may. One of the sort of highlights you're going to do, and we'll put this up on the screen later, sort of a 3-day set of events on the 14th, 15th, 16th of March. But a highlight of that is you're going to have John Perkins.
Yes.
Let me just play a little clip, then we'll hear a little bit from Mr. Perkins and then come back.
Will do.
Okay.
He is not just a talker. John Perkins is a doer. He's out there getting his hands dirty, working in these little communities and literally showing people how they can help themselves to a better life.
See, I grew up without a mother. I grew up without a father. I grew up without an intact family. I grew up without the institution of love. That's what a family is an institution of love.
Who is John Perkins?
John Perkins is an extremely gifted and humble man who you would never know, has advised 3 presidents, written a dozen books, has 13 honorary doctorate degrees, and has only acquired the 3rd grade education. He has founded the Spencer Perkins Foundation, the John Perkins Foundation. He helped start the Christian Community Development Association like 23 years ago out of Chicago. That's still doing wonderful work today around the country, around holistic community development. He's extremely passionate about the urban core and revitalizing the urban core from the inside out. Not a handout, but a hand up. And you can give a handout and never meet the folk who acquire what it is that you gave. But a hand up means I've literally got to get close enough to you to see you and touch you.
Is Mr. Perkins a role model hero for you, personally?
Yes.
Because that sounds exactly what I mean, I know you pretty well. I know that's exactly what you've been trying to do.
Precisely. And it's really been amazing that he's willing to come here for us. Now, this is his last year, he said. He said he's not coming back through anywhere, for that matter. He said he's retiring this year. He's 83. He's been doing this for 50 years. So we're excited. It is truly going to be a wonderful weekend of events.
And what do you hope he will do? He's at your Sunday morning service, right?
And a Saturday morning open to the public event at Taft High School.
Oh, okay. So you'll be at the Saturday event as well.
He's the keynote address for Saturday, and he'll be preaching for us on Sunday.
And he'll be preaching on Sunday.
Yes.
Let's make sure people see all of these. We get the full screen here. So Friday night, on March the 14th, there is a worship service.
Correct, and that is at People's Church, which is 220 William Howard Taft.
Okay.
Walnut Hills.
And what time is that?
That is at 7 p.m.
Okay. Then the Saturday, March the 15th, there's a breakfast, right?
Correct. 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock where?
Taft High School.
At Taft High School, okay. And then Sunday, March the 16th, the service with Mr. Perkins.
Again, yes, at Taft at 11 a.m.
At 11 a.m.
Correct.
Okay, that magic 11 a.m.
Yes.
for church services. Sherman, congratulations for the first year. I know how much this effort has meant to you to get this started. And how do I just suspect you're going to be back for Hope Fest and you're going to be on the phone to me about something else? So,
if you'll have me, I'll be back.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Join me again next week to meet the men and the women working to shape our community for the future. Have a good week.
Awesome.
Say right there. Hey, see you.